I never imagined that the night before my wedding would be the last moment of peace I'd share with Mariana. Everything had gone according to plan. The rehearsals, the laughter with friends, the dinner with our families. She was radiant, my fiancée, about to become my wife. She gave me a gentle kiss on the cheek before leaving for her bachelorette party. "Just some drinks and dancing with the girls," she said, winking. I smiled, told her I loved her, and watched her walk out the door. That night, I couldn't sleep, not because I was nervous, but because I was happy. I thought about everything we had been through from our college days in Boston to now. I worked at an architecture firm downtown, and she was a teacher at a private school in Brooklyn. We had met at a jazz club in the West Village, where a mutual friend introduced us. Since then, it had been 5 years of dating, trips to the Hamptons, weekends at her parents' house in Connecticut, and now finally the wedding. Lying in bed, I scrolled through old photos of us. Hikes in the Catskills, birthday parties, lazy Sundays in Central Park. I was just about to fall asleep when my phone vibrated. It was a message from an unknown number. No words, just a video file. At first I thought it was spam, but curiosity got the best of me. I tapped on it. What I saw made my blood run cold. The music was loud, the lights were dim, and the camera was shaky. But there she was, my fiancée, on another man's lap, laughing, kissing him. The video wasn't short or innocent. I stared at the screen, breathless, my hands trembling. I recognized the place. It was a dive bar in the Lower East Side, a bohemian spot where she and her friends used to hang out before we met. I also knew the guy by sight, a man named Felipe who worked at the same school as her. I had noticed how he looked at her the few times we met at school gatherings, but Mariana always said he was just a colleague. In the video, she laughed as he kissed her neck. Her friends appeared in the background, some dancing, others watching the scene with knowing smiles. Tati, who was going to be her maid of honor the next day, even raised a glass as if to toast the situation. The video ended with the two of them kissing intensely and him whispering something in her ear that made her laugh. I watched the video 3-4 times. Each time I was more stunned. I tried to call her, but it went straight to voicemail. I sent a message, but it didn't go through. I called Rodrigo, my best friend and best man, but he didn't answer either. They were probably all drunk by that point. I spent the night wide awake, sitting on the balcony of our apartment in Williamsburg, chain smoking, a habit I had quit when I met Mariana. The sky began to lighten, and with it came a cold certainty. I wouldn't call off the wedding. Not yet. I wanted to see how far she would take the charade. When the alarm clock went off at 7, I was already ready. Not in my tux, but with a decision. The wedding was at 4 p.m. at Grace Church, followed by a reception at the plaza. We would have 300 guests, a band she loved, a ridiculously expensive buffet her parents insisted on paying for. Everything was perfect. Everything was planned. Now I had my own plans. I took a long shower, looked at myself in the mirror, and almost didn't recognize my reflection. Deep circles under my eyes, a tense jaw, a vacant stare. But I wasn't crying. No, something colder had taken over me. Betrayal does that to a man. I stared at the tux for a long time before putting it on. I drank strong coffee, grabbed the gold wedding bands we had chosen together, and headed out for what would be the longest day of my life. On the morning of the wedding, I woke up before the sun. In fact, I had barely slept. The video of Mariana with that guy kept replaying in my head like a nightmare on a loop. I brewed the strongest coffee I could and sat on the balcony, watching Manhattan wake up. The first subway trains were already, rumbling, carrying workers to another day's battle, and there I was, fighting my own internal battle. My phone wouldn't stop ringing. Messages from Rodrigo asking if I was nervous, from my mom saying she was on her way to the salon to meet Mariana's family, from my dad letting me know the limousine driver had confirmed the time. I didn't reply to any of them. I just sent a message to Fernando, my cousin who worked in video production. I need you to bring a projector to the church. It's a surprise, don't tell anyone. He replied with a thumbs up emoji. No questions asked. Fernando had always been that way, discreet, reliable. I also sent him the video, with clear instructions. Get this ready to be shown. I'll let you know when. As I got ready, I noticed my hands were no longer shaking. The initial pain had transformed into something more controlled, more calculated. I put on each piece of my tux like a gladiator donning his armor. Black bow tie, Italian shoes that cost a fortune, silver cufflinks that had belonged to my grandfather. Everything was impeccable. Noon, Rodrigo showed up at the apartment with a bottle of whiskey. "Hey Mason, ready for the big day?" He flashed a wide grin, not noticing the storm in my eyes. "More than you can imagine," I replied, forcing a smile. Rodrigo poured 2 shots and toasted to my happiness. I downed the whiskey in one gulp, feeling the liquid burn my throat. I almost told him everything right then, but something stopped me. Maybe a last thread of hope that it was all a terrible mistake, a nightmare from which I would wake. "Did you see Mariana last night?" I asked, trying to sound casual. "Only at the beginning of the party. I left early because I had to take care of some business this morning. But the girls were having a good time, you know?" He laughed, patting me on the back. "But relax, it was nothing. Just bachelorette party stuff." If only he knew. At 2 in the afternoon, we got into the car that would take us to the church. The New York sky was surprisingly blue for a Saturday in October. On the radio, a country song was playing, the kind that Mariana and I used to belt out when we were on road trips. The driver tried to make conversation a few times, but my monosyllabic answers quickly discouraged him. We arrived at the church 40 minutes before the ceremony. The place was already decorated with white lilies and satin ribbons, exactly as Mariana had dreamed. The first guests were starting to arrive, smiling, elegant, oblivious to the drama that was about to unfold. I went to a back room in the church, where the groom traditionally waits. Father John, an elderly man with white hair who had known my family for years, came to give me his blessing. "Nervous, my son?" he asked, with that serene smile. "No, Father. I am at peace with my decision," I replied, and it was true. I found Fernando discreetly adjusting the projector near the altar. He gave me a nod of confirmation. Everything was ready. My father entered the room, straightening his tie. He seemed more nervous than me. "Son, your mother just called me. She said, Mariana looks beautiful. They're leaving the salon now." He placed a hand on my shoulder. "I'm proud of you, Mason. She's a good girl." I swallowed hard. If only he knew the truth. But I smiled and thanked him. It wasn't the time to involve anyone else in that story. The next few minutes passed in slow motion. I greeted some uncles, cousins, old friends. Everyone was congratulating me, wishing me happiness, saying how Mariana and I made a perfect couple. Each word was like a small stab. At 3:45 p.m., Rodrigo came to get me. "It's time, man. The bride is on her way." I walked to the altar like a condemned man walking to the gallows. The church was packed. I recognized faces from college, from work, relatives I hadn't seen in years. Mariana's mother, Mrs. Celia, waved to me with tears in her eyes. Her father, Mr. August, a serious and traditional man, looked at me with approval. The organist began to play. The church doors opened, and there she was, stunning in her white dress, smiling as if nothing had happened, as if she hadn't been in another man's arms just hours before. In that moment, something inside me hardened completely. The last doubt vanished. I knew exactly what I had to do. The music began. Everyone stood up. Mariana walked down the center aisle, arm in arm with her father, her eyes fixed on mine. I kept up the act, smiling just enough, holding her gaze, pretending I wasn't falling apart inside. Her dress was magnificent, with lace details that took months to be hand-embroidered. Her veil, delicate as mist, partially covered her face. She looked like an angel, a fallen angel. We stood before the altar. Father John asked the usual questions. Rodrigo was silently beside me, not suspecting that the words he had rehearsed for weeks would never be heard. I glanced to the side and saw Fernando near the sound equipment with his laptop connected to the projector, awaiting my signal. Mariana said her vows with shaky sincerity. She called me her soulmate. Her voice cracked when she said she would never hurt me. For a moment I almost believed her. Almost. Then it was my turn to speak. I looked into her eyes, held her hands, and opened my mouth. But I didn't pronounce the vows. Instead I said, "Before I say anything, I want to show everyone something special." I gave Fernando a discreet signal. The church lights dimmed slightly. The screen came down behind the altar, where the hymns would normally be projected. The projector turned on. Mariana's smile wavered. Her body stiffened, and there it was for everyone to see. The kiss, the sensual dance, the betrayal, in high definition. The church fell silent, except for her desperate whisper, "No. Please. Stop." Her face turned white as a sheet. Mrs. Celia let out a choked cry. Mr. August tried to stand up to turn off the projector, but two of my cousins stopped him. The priest looked like he wanted to disappear. Guests began to murmur, some even recording the scene with their phones. I remained motionless, my eyes fixed on hers. Mariana looked at me like a deer in headlights, guilty, exposed, desperate. She reached out a hand to me, her voice trembling. "It didn't mean anything. I was drunk. It was a mistake." I took a step back. "A mistake that you filmed. A mistake that you smiled while making. A mistake that you kissed with such enthusiasm," I said, each word like a bullet. I turned to the guests. "Thank you all for coming. But there will be no wedding today. She already gave herself to someone else last night." The silence turned into chaos. The bridesmaids rushed to her side. Mr. August tried to confront me, but my friends formed a barrier. I walked away, slowly, steadily, freely. Each step I took felt like a chain breaking. I had chosen dignity over delusion, truth over fantasy. As I walked down the church aisle, I heard Mariana's sobs and her mother's muffled cries. I saw the shocked face of Tati, the treacherous maid of honor who had toasted her friend's infidelity. Our eyes met for a second before she looked away, ashamed. In the church lobby, I found my parents. My mother was crying silently. My father looked shocked. I hugged them both briefly. "I'm sorry," I whispered. "You'll understand later." Outside, the October sun was still shining over New York. Fifth Avenue was as busy as ever, cars passing, people rushing, the city pulsing at its frantic pace, oblivious to my personal drama. Life went on. I got into the same car that had brought me to the church. The driver, confused, asked, "And the bride, sir?" "There will be no bride today," I replied simply. "Take me to JFK." He nodded without asking any more questions. On the way, I turned off my phone, which was already buzzing with notifications. I didn't want to talk to anyone. The decision had been made in the heat of the moment, but I didn't regret it. I had a small bag in the trunk of the car, something I had packed that morning as a plan B in case I had the courage to do what I had just done. I didn't even know where I was going. Actually, I just knew I needed to get away. Maybe to Portugal, where I have a cousin in Lisbon, or maybe to California to feel the warmth of the sun and the sea, so different from the coldness that now inhabited my chest. The destination didn't matter. The important thing was the movement, the escape, the liberation. As the car drove along the Van Wyck Expressway towards the airport, I felt a strange lightness. It wasn't happiness. I was far from it. It was as if a weight had been lifted from my shoulders. The weight of the lie. The weight of a future built on quicksand. The phone I had turned off felt heavy in my pocket. I knew that when I turned it on again, I would face a storm. Missed calls, text messages, social media notifications. The story would spread like wildfire. But that would be a problem for another day. Today, I just wanted to breathe and move on. At JFK Airport, I bought a ticket for the first available flight, Fort Lauderdale, Florida. Ironic, wasn't it? Fort Lauderdale was exactly what I was looking for at that moment. While waiting in the departure lounge, I turned on my phone. For a few minutes, it was like opening the floodgates of a dam. 27 missed calls from Mariana, 42 messages, 15 calls from Rodrigo, messages from my mom, my dad, cousins, uncles, friends. An Instagram notification informed me that I had been tagged in several publications. The video had already leaked. Of course it had leaked. In a church with 300 people, all with smartphones, it was inevitable. I turned off my phone again. I wasn't ready to deal with it, not yet. The flight was announced and I boarded, carrying only the small bag I had prepared that morning. Inside, a few t-shirts, shorts, a swimsuit, toiletries, and my passport. Nothing to remind me of Mariana or the wedding. Nothing to remind me of the life I thought I would have. When the plane took off, I felt a mix of relief and fear. Relief at leaving the chaos behind, fear of the unknown that awaited me. I closed my eyes and tried to sleep, but the images from the video continued to haunt me. Mariana on that guy's lap. Mariana laughing. Mariana betraying me on the eve of our wedding. Angry. Arrived in Fort Lauderdale at night. I took a taxi to a simple hotel on the waterfront. The receptionist, a friendly guy named Joshua, could tell I wasn't doing well. "First time in Florida, boss?" he asked, trying to be friendly. "Yes," I replied curtly. "I need a room for an indefinite amount of time." He looked at me curiously but didn't ask questions. He handed me the key to room 305 and wished me a good stay. The room was basic but clean. A double bed, a noisy air conditioner, a view of the sea. I took a long shower as if the water could wash away everything that had happened. Afterward, I fell into bed and slept a heavy, dreamless sleep. I woke up to the sound of the waves and the smell of the salty air. For a brief moment, I forgot everything. Then reality came back like a punch to the stomach. I dragged myself to the balcony and looked at the sea. The beach was already busy with tourists laying out their towels on the sand, vendors yelling, "Ice cold water, get your cold water," children running and laughing. Life went on. I decided I needed to face the consequences. I turned on my phone. Immediately, new notifications started pouring in. I ignored most of them, but I opened Rodrigo's messages. Man, what was that? Everyone is talking about it. Her family is furious. Where are you? Call me when you can. I'm worried. I get why you did what you did. I just want to know if you're okay. I replied with a short message. I'm fine. I need some time. I'll call you later. I reluctantly opened Mariana's messages. Mason, for God's sake, let me explain. It wasn't what it looked like. I was drunk. I didn't know what I was doing. Please come back. We can talk. I love you. The messages continued, each one more desperate than the last. The last one had been sent at 4:27 a.m. I can't live without you. Please forgive me. I deleted them all without replying. I opened Instagram out of morbid curiosity. As expected, the video was everywhere. Someone had created a hashtag, #groom left at the altar. That was trending in the US. I saw snippets of comments, "A poor guy. She got what she deserved. Who hasn't? What a humiliation." My life had become a public spectacle. People who didn't even know me were debating my story, taking sides, forming opinions. It was surreal. I closed all social media and called my parents. My mom answered on the first ring. "Son, thank God. Where are you? We've been so worried." "I'm okay, Mom. I'm in Fort Lauderdale. I needed some space." "I understand, my son. What a horrible situation." She paused. "Mariana's mom came by last night. She was a wreck. Said her daughter is devastated, that she took some sedatives." "I don't want to know, Mom," I interrupted. "Not now." "Okay, son, I just thought you should know." Another pause. "Your dad wants to talk to you." My dad took the phone. He had always been a man of few words. "Are you okay?" he asked directly. I will be. Good, you did what you thought was right. We support you. He cleared his throat, uncomfortable with emotional displays. Need any money? No, Dad. I have enough. I'll be here for a while. Maybe I'll work remotely. All right. Take care. The call ended, and I felt a lump in my throat. The simplicity of their support moved me more than any words of comfort could. I spent the rest of the day walking on the beach, letting the sun and the sea begin to heal the wounds that were still open. I drank a tropical drink sitting on the sand, watching happy families, couples in love, surfers challenging the waves. It felt like a different world, a world where I was just another person among many, anonymous, without a story, without pain. At night, I sat at a beach bar and ordered a mojito. The bartender, a chatty local named Antonio, noticed my East Coast accent. Running from the cold weather back home, boss? Running from a lot of things, I replied, more to myself than to him. Drinking alone, with the sound of the ocean in the background and the buzz of conversations around me, I realized that the outburst at the altar hadn't just been the end of my relationship with Mariana. It had been the end of a version of myself. The Mason who trusted blindly, who planned a perfect life, who believed in happy endings, had died in that church, and I still didn't know who had been born in his place. The story spread fast. The video went viral. People I hadn't seen in years sent me messages. Some praised me for my courage. Others criticized me for the public display. Some asked for interviews for podcasts and TV shows. A producer for a popular show even offered me money to tell my side of the story. I refused everything. I didn't want to turn my pain into entertainment for the masses. I decided to stay in Fort Lauderdale indefinitely. I was able to negotiate with my boss to work remotely. He understood the situation. After all, who hadn't seen the video of the cheated groom who left his bride at the altar? I rented a small house in Delray Beach, about 15 miles from Fort Lauderdale. It was a simple place with a porch facing the sea and a hammock where I spent hours watching the horizon. Mariana didn't give up easily. After ignoring her hundreds of messages and calls, she showed up in Delray Beach 2 weeks later. I don't know how she found out where I was. Maybe my mom told her. Maybe she tracked my IP through work. I was coming back from the beach when I saw her sitting on the steps of the porch, eyes red from crying, thinner than I remembered. "Mason," she said, jumping up. "Please, listen to me." I stopped a few feet away, feeling a whirlwind of emotions. Anger, sadness, longing, disgust. "How did you find me?" "Does it matter? I had to see you explain." "There's nothing to explain, Mariana. I saw the video. Everyone saw it." She came closer, trying to touch my arm. I backed away. I was drunk, out of my mind. It was a terrible mistake, but it was just once, a moment of weakness. "A moment?" I laughed without humor. "The video was almost 5 minutes long, and your friends were celebrating, toasting. It looked pretty planned to me." "It wasn't like that." "I love you, Mason. That night didn't mean anything." "For me, it meant everything," I replied, feeling my throat tighten. It meant that the woman I loved, that I was about to swear lifelong fidelity to, didn't hesitate to cheat on me at the first opportunity. She started to cry, that dramatic cry I knew well. Before, it used to work on me. Now, it just annoyed me. "Mason, people make mistakes. We can get past this. Go to couples therapy." "No, Mariana. It's over. Go away. I'm not going to give up on you, on our love." "Our love?" I raised my voice, losing my patience. "What love? Love doesn't betray, doesn't humiliate, doesn't lie. Whatever you feel for me, it's not love." I went inside the house and closed the door. She kept knocking, shouting my name, pleading. The neighbors started to stare. Eventually, she gave up. I heard the sound of a car driving away. Only then did I let the tears fall. I wasn't crying for her, but for what could have been. For the shattered dreams, for the broken trust. The next day, I got a call from Rodrigo. He was worried. "Mariana came back from Delray Beach completely destroyed," he said. "She's saying some concerning things, man." She's not my problem anymore. Rodrigo. I know, but she's fragile, you know her. Fragile. That's how everyone described her. Fragile like a bomb, capable of destroying everything around her. Look, I'm sorry if she's suffering, but so am I. The difference is, I didn't cause this. She did. There was silence on the other end of the line. You're right, he finally agreed. I just thought I should warn you. And how are you doing? Surviving, I answered honestly. One day at a time. Weeks turned into months. October became November, which became December. I spent Christmas alone on the beach, watching families celebrate in the distance. I received messages from my parents, from Rodrigo, from some friends. Mariana also sent one, which I deleted without reading. At my remote job, I threw myself into new projects. My boss commented that I had never been so productive. The pain was transforming into fuel. At night, I would walk on the beach until I was exhausted, hoping to sleep without dreaming about her. In January, when Delray Beach was crowded with tourists, I decided it was time for a new beginning. I couldn't continue to be defined by that moment, by that betrayal. I resigned from the architecture firm and started planning a longer trip. Maybe Europe, maybe Asia, somewhere where no one had heard of the groom who left his bride at the altar. Before leaving, however, I received an unexpected call. It was Mr. August, Mariana's father. Mason, his voice sounded tired. I know you must hate me, all of us, but I don't hate anyone, Mr. August. Thank you for that. He took a deep breath. Mariana is in the hospital. She tried to hurt herself. She's under observation now. I felt a pang in my chest. Despite everything, I didn't wish her harm. I'm so sorry to hear that. I hope she gets better. She will, he assured me. She's in therapy, taking medication. She'll be okay. He paused. I'm not calling to make you feel guilty. I just thought you should know. Thank you for letting me know. After that call, I spent days reflecting. I wasn't responsible for Mariana's choices, not the ones that led to the betrayal, nor the ones that came after. Each of us is the master of our own destiny. She had made her choices. I had made mine. In February, I put a backpack on my shoulders and boarded a flight to Lisbon. The plan was to spend a few months traveling through Europe, then maybe head to Southeast Asia. I wasn't in a hurry. I had no commitments. I didn't have a heart to leave behind. Or at least that's what I thought. On the eve of the trip, I deleted all my social media. I no longer wanted to be that internet character, the betrayed groom. I wanted to be just Mason, an American traveling the world, trying to find his place. I wasn't running away. I was searching for a version of myself that wasn't defined by the pain, the betrayal, the video that still haunted my nightmares. What I didn't realize yet was that carrying that grudge was like carrying a stone on my back. It didn't hurt Mariana. It only weighed on me. And at some point on this journey, I would need to learn to let it go. Months passed. I traveled. I met people. I found joy in things I had neglected. Music, photography, nature. Slowly, the weight on my chest lessened. I stopped looking for explanations. I stopped replaying that night. I stopped needing closure from someone who never deserved my loyalty. Lisbon was my first stop. The city with its cobblestone streets, the yellow trams going up and down hills, the smell of custard tarts in the air. I rented a small apartment in Alfama, the city's oldest neighborhood. I started taking photos of the people, the architecture, the Tagus River at sunset. One day, an old Portuguese woman, the owner of the cafe where I had my coffee every morning, asked me why my eyes always seemed sad, even when I smiled. I lost someone, I answered vaguely. Death or betrayal? She asked directly with that typical Portuguese frankness. Betrayal? She nodded as if she knew the subject well. Death hurts more at first, but the pain fades over time. Betrayal? That hurts less at first, but it can poison a whole life if you let it. Her words stayed with me as I left Portugal for Spain, then Italy, Greece, Turkey. In each place, I soaked up the local culture, met people, collected stories. In Barcelona, I became friends with a group of American expats. In Rome, I had a brief romance with an American girl who was studying art. In Santorini, I spent weeks helping a local man renovate his small guest house in exchange for lodging. I started posting my photographs on a new Instagram profile, anonymous, with no connection to my previous life. Surprisingly, I gained followers. People commented on the poetic melancholy of my images. They didn't know that each photo was a way of exorcising ghosts. In August, 6 months after leaving the States, I was in a small village on the coast of Turkey when I received an email from Fernando, my cousin. "Hey, long-lost cousin, I hope you're doing well. I just wanted to let you know that Mariana is getting married. To Felipe, that guy from the video. I thought you should know, not for her, but for you. To close that chapter for good." I sat on the beach, staring at the email, for a long time. I expected to feel anger, jealousy, pain, but what I felt was relief, as if a final knot had been untied. She was moving on with the person she chose that night, and I was following my own path. I replied, thanking him for the information and asking about him, about the family, about the country I was starting to miss. We exchanged a few emails in the following days. He told me the video had been forgotten, replaced by new scandals, new viral content, as happens on the internet. Life in New York City was continuing at the same frantic pace as always. In September, I decided it was time to head east. I flew to Bangkok, then Vietnam, Cambodia, Indonesia. In Bali, I met Gabriella, a girl from Los Angeles, who had been traveling alone for 2 years. She was the opposite of Mariana, spontaneous, independent, not afraid to speak her mind. She became my travel companion, then my friend, then something more. It was with Gabriella that I learned to surf on paradisiacal beaches, to meditate in ancient temples, to try foods I never imagined I would like. It was with her that, for the first time since that fateful October, I was able to talk about what happened without feeling that pang in my chest. "You know you did the right thing, right?" she said one night, as we lay in a hammock on the porch of our bungalow in Koh Samui. "You exposed the truth. A lot of people prefer to live a lie. Sometimes I wonder if I wasn't too cruel. It would be cruel to spend your life with someone who didn't respect you. It would be cruel to lie to yourself." She turned to me. "The truth sets you free, even when it hurts." One afternoon, on an almost deserted beach in Thailand, I sat down to watch the sunset. Gabriella had gone for a swim. The sky was painted in shades of orange and pink. The sea was calm, the breeze was gentle. For the first time in a long time, I smiled, truly. Not the kind of smile you put on for others. A smile that comes from knowing you went through hell and came out whole. They say a broken heart destroys you. Maybe it does, but only if you let it. For me, it was a violent awakening. Painful, but necessary. When I look back now, it's not with bitterness, but with gratitude. Because sometimes the worst thing that happens to you is exactly what sets you free. In December, after almost a year of traveling, I decided it was time to go back to the States. Not to New York, but to Los Angeles with Gabriella. I found a job at an architecture firm specializing in sustainability, something I had always been interested in. I bought a surfboard. I adopted a mutt that showed up at the door of our apartment in Santa Monica. Little by little, I built a new life. One Sunday afternoon, as we walked on Venice Beach, Gabriella asked me, "Do you still think about her? About Mariana?" I looked at the horizon, at the sun beginning to set behind the Malibu mountains. "Sometimes," I replied honestly. Not with anger or longing. I think of her like you think of a book you read a long time ago. You remember the story, but it doesn't affect you anymore. Gabriella smiled and squeezed my hand. We continued walking with the dog running ahead of us, chasing seagulls. The sea was calm, the sky was clear, the future was open like a blank book waiting to be written. Mariana's betrayal was no longer the defining chapter of my story. It was just a chapter. Painful, yes, but also transformative. A chapter that taught me about resilience, about truth, about new beginnings. That night, lying in bed with Gabriella sleeping beside me, I realized that the greatest victory hadn't been exposing Mariana at the altar. The greatest victory was rediscovering myself in the ruins of what I thought my life would be. Discovering that happiness is not a fixed destination, but a path that is rebuilt every day. And that sometimes when a door closes violently, it's not the end of the story. It's just the universe pushing you in the direction you were meant to go all along.